lit. Roll up to the party, roll up to the party. Roll up to the party, roll up to the party. Roll up to the party, roll up to the party. Roll up to the party, roll up to the party. Roll up to the party, roll up to the party. Roll up to the party, roll up to the party. Roll up to the party, roll up to the party. Roll up to the party, roll up to the party.
And welcome everyone to another Niner Sickness podcast. Welcome everyone that's coming in, trickling in. Good, happy Friday. The weekend is almost here. We have some breaking news that we'll get into. We have a special guest. This guy needs no introduction. He is famous around the 49er content world. I have a lot of appreciation for him. I truly look up to him as a content creator. He's younger than me, but he's much wiser and knows his football. So I am eager to bring him on. But before we do, we know what do we do here? We need to wipe our feet before entering and smash that like button. I just want to welcome Melissa, one of my moderators. We got 49er Media. We got Daniel. As you guys start trickling in, breaking news. And we're going to get into that as I bring our special guest. With no further ado, let me introduce you to a man that needs no introduction. What is going on, Raj?
Appreciate you, man. What's up, Beto? Thanks for the warm welcome. I'm not that much younger than you, by the way, but I guess I'm younger than I look, but I'm happy to be here. We're leading the show off with some breaking news. 49ers got a kicker today. I'm ready to talk about it. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing great. And if you're a little bit younger than me, then you look good for your age. 'Cause I'm 53.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you knew my age or not, but
I thought you were younger than 53, so you look good for your age, my man.
Oh, I appreciate it. Yeah, 53, man. I don't feel younger, but thank you. Yeah, breaking news, man. So I'm gonna let you dive into this as I welcome everybody into the chat. What are your thoughts of the breaking news? The San Francisco 49ers have traded for kicker Zane Gonzalez from the Carolina Panthers, swapping a 2025 late round pick per Tom Pelissero. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, and it's officially official. The 49ers just tweeted this out as well. They just said, welcome to the Bay. Kicker, exactly. Late round picks. The good news is the 49ers now have a kicker on the roster. I'm a little surprised because they go the cheap route, as they usually do. A late round compensatory pick in 2025, that's like getting them for nothing. The 49ers know how to get these compensatory picks like nobody's business. So for the 49ers, it really didn't cost them anything because it's a comp pick and they load up on these. But the crazy news about this is officially the end of the Robbie Gould era, which me and you were talking about behind the scenes. This is it. Robbie Gould, his time in the red and gold is over. I'm going to wish him good luck and farewell, give him a salute. A little sad, but now we have a younger kicker. He's 27. He's played in the league for several years. He's played for Cleveland, Arizona mainly, and Carolina. The only bad thing about this move is he was an injured kicker last year. He didn't play last year. His last season was 2021, where he was not bad. 20 out of 22 field goals. He's kicked 90 out of 113 for his career. So he's not bad. He's gotten better, but he did have a quad injury. I believe he was in warm-ups against the Bills in 2021, and he messed up his quad, so he didn't play last year. That's a little concerning. So I still think the 49ers will go into the draft and get a kicker. Now, they probably won't get a Jake Moody, but they'll still get a kicker, I think, for competition. So that's my takeaway.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what the Niners are bringing in a kicker for to just come in because they're moving on for Robbie. Too much money. They want to save money in that. Robbie's up there in age, so they want to go younger. And we can't dismiss the idea that the Niners will still draft a kicker. Maybe not the kicker that we wanted, but a kicker in the draft nevertheless to bring in to give competition to Mr. Gonzalez. Now, I watched a little bit of his tape as soon as it broke out. As I mentioned to you earlier off camera, he looked better now with the Panthers than he did with Arizona. But and then he's also coming off an injury. For those that don't know, he had a major injury. And so let's see what we have. We're not giving much. He doesn't, like you said, he doesn't count against the cap this year. So why not? Why not bring him in and see what he got? And if he impresses, he stays. And if he doesn't, then we move on. The Niners are definitely not giving much. I will miss Robbie though. Even though he's up there in age, one thing we know for sure with Robbie, and if he does retire, he will retire never missing a field goal in the playoffs in his career. That is a stat that is amazing within itself. He has never, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure he's never missed a field goal in his career in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So my goodness, not a lot of kickers can say that. So hopefully that doesn't bite us in the butt this season in the playoffs. Can you imagine missing out on a game because of a kick? We're like, no, Gonzalez. As long as he doesn't turn into Cortez. Remember Cortez?
Don't. I was hoping he didn't say that name, but I knew we were gonna drop that name tonight because we're talking about kickers. There's been some kickers on the 49ers that, and Cortez was probably the worst. They've had some good ones. Joe Nedney, David Akers, and Robbie Gold. And that, to me, Robbie Gold, since I've been watching 49er football, I mean, even before then, they've had some decent kickers. But to me, there was no kicker like Robbie Gold, because not only was he clutch in the playoffs, like you mentioned beautifully, I mean, no missed field goals, right, in the playoffs. The guy was a menace. He was a savage, like a captain. When your kicker is a captain of your team, that's telling you something. And this guy was a captain for a team. I just tweeted out, it appears it's officially the end of the Robbie Gold era with the 49ers, and the video of him getting in fight with Jalen Ramsey. Like, that's who Robbie Gold was. He was a heart and soul of this team. He's going to be missed, man. Like, I'm going to miss Robbie Gold. And you're absolutely right. Because if this guy Gonzalez, if he makes kicks, we're all going to love him. But if he misses a kick in those playoffs or a big game, I tell you what, man, you better pack your bags, because 49ers fans are going to be pissed off. I remember when Robbie wasn't playing, there's been some times where he had injuries, right? Getting older, he had some injuries, and we got like Chase McLaughlin and a few other kickers here and there to help out. Man, when they missed kicks, we were like so mad. Like, I can't believe Robbie's out. Seattle game. Remember that Seattle game 2019? Yeah. We were 8 in a row. We had 8 wins. You go into the Seattle, we had him, man. We had him on the ropes. Dre Greenlaw, interception in overtime. Missed the kicks, and you're just like, are you kidding me, man? Like, those are clutch situations that if Gonzalez misses, man, we're going to be sick. We're going to be sick. So hopefully, like you said, the 49ers do not miss anything with Robbie Gold.
Exactly. Kickers are players too. A lot of people like to say that kickers ain't football players, but they are until they miss that field goal, right? Until they miss that crushing field goal, they can propel you advance you into the playoffs or help you make it into the playoffs. Mm-hmm. That kick that either gets you in there or misses is when you realize, man, these kickers are definitely needed. So, best of luck for Robbie, man. We wish you the best, man. You did a lot for us. Go hang out with Nitley and all those other guys. I don't think he might get picked up. You never know if a kicker gets hurt during the season. He might be available out there for a team. But for us, we're moving on. Or if this guy doesn't do too good and the Niners get a little desperate, you never know. Hey, Robbie, we are sorry that we hurt your feelings, but can you come back? We'll give you a little bit of a pay raise. But so that is the breaking news that just came on not too long ago. My boy Raj was all over it on Twitter and Instagram, and letting everybody know of our newest player in the San Francisco roster. I just want to welcome everybody that's coming in. Terradome, we got Chifo Jones in the house. We got Eric. What's up, Eric? Melissa, who I mentioned earlier. John, what's up, John? Young hitter. Josh, young daddy. Daddy for the first time. And proud papa. Victor Ramirez is in the house. What's up, Victor? Yeah, bro. So before we go on, this man right here, Raj, has more followings than I ever will on one channel, much less all the channels. But with that said, in the description below, I put his Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook links. So if for whatever reason you're not following him in any of those platforms, please feel free to just click on the link, go into that particular platform, and subscribe to this man. He's always breaking the news. He's always keeping you updated with all and everything that is happening with your San Francisco 49ers 24/7. So if you want to be updated, I don't do that. I'm be honest with you. I like to sit there and watch TV with a remote. So when the breaking news comes, I'm like, should I go and say something? Nah, I'm gonna keep watching. So, I just do this for a hobby. But men like Raj, they are on top of it and always breaking news. You want to make sure you are subscribed to the channel, because if you want to know what's going on with your San Francisco 49ers and you're not someone that is always in watching Twitter, it is nice to be updated time to time when the San Francisco makes changes like today. With that said, Raj, before we move on to our other topics, I want to ask you, how did you become a Niner fan? How long you became a Niner fan? And what was your favorite game ever?
Oh man, favorite game ever. When did I become a Niner fan? So I've been a Niner fan my whole life, pretty much. My dad was a huge Niner fan when he was alive. Like that was it. When I was a kid, he says, "Listen, you're gonna be a 49er fan, or you're gonna leave the house." Basically, he's like, "That's it. Those are the rules." When he came to America, he used to travel to San Francisco for work. And I remember in the early 80s, he saw the 49ers beat the Cowboys. He saw the catch, and like rest is history. He became a Niner fan, even though when my family came to America, they moved to Texas, and all my family was Dallas fans. But he hated them because he already saw that, and he saw the moments. Like he was already a Niner guy, like true and true. He hated the Cowboys. Family got mad at him because they're like, we're Dallas fans. He goes, well, you guys are. Well, I'm a Niner fan. So when I was born, he was like, look, I got a son. He's gonna be a Niner fan, and that's what it is. We used to watch Niner games all the time. And we lived in Vegas when I was growing up, and rooted for the Niners. Every year we'd go to a game at Candlestick. So, man, my favorite game, so many. There's so many, but it's got to be Niners Saints playoff game. The Vernon Davis. Jeez, man, that game was iconic. Alex Smith, bootleg. You got Joe Staley with the crazy block. You got the catch three. I mean, to me, that's probably my favorite game I ever watched, just because, God, that was insane. Very close, probably right up there with it is the catch two, Steve Young, T.O., Green Bay, because back in those days, I mean, Green Bay used to own us every single year, and I hated Green Bay, and my best friend, he was a Green Bay fan, and he used to always give me crap, and when we took him down with Steve Young hitting T.O. in those last seconds, and I remember T.O., I love T.O., but that game, he was not having a good game, he was dropping everything, and he makes the biggest catch of the game, and he's crying. I was like, wow, that was chill. So those two games probably are my favorite Niner games of all time.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's awesome, bro. That's everybody comes up some way or another, get introduced to the Niners. A dad, a mom, an uncle, a cousin. And back when I grew up, I started watching the 49ers in 1978, following the Niners in 78. And all my family were Raider fans. Nobody. From that point on, were Niners. And I've always been the guy that liked to lead and not follow, go my own way. So when I started to get into a young age, started to get into football, I'm like, I don't want to just pick the Raiders because Pops and everybody likes it. I want to see who was out there. And back then, Joe Montana and Bill Walsh were not part. It was not part of the Niners yet. The Niners haven't taken off. At that point, the Niners were just a terrible team. And but I like the colors. I like that they were from San Francisco, and I like that that the Raiders hated them. Like, man, we can have great games, controversial with me, bringing in the red and gold in here. So I started to pick up that, and then Bill Walsh gets hired from Stanford, and then he brings in Joe Montana, and the rest is history. And we start becoming the destiny team that we are, and having the 5 Super Bowls, and just the fan base just grew, and I watched it grow. So I've watched the ups and downs of this team, the heartaches, the fun times, not the good times. But I've been blessed, Raj. I had the opportunity to go to every Super Bowl and watch it in person. And that's been a blessing for me. It's something that I like, that I enjoy. Oh, and I'll take that to my grave. Unfortunately, I can't pass down that to the kids, but I've always enjoyed that, and I got to enjoy the 5 parades that took place in San Francisco for those victories. this is why I want the championship to be won so much for the young bloods, for the young kids that maybe weren't born during that time. Maybe they watch the Super Bowls, but they watch it on replay, on tape, on DVD, whatever they watched it on, but they didn't get to see it live. They haven't experienced a traditional parade and seeing the players up there and waving at them and all that experience that you can never forget. So I'm hoping the Niners can bring it in, and they're definitely heading in the right direction by making some additions. I want to ask you, Raj, if there's one disappointing moment in your fan life of the Niners, which is it?
Oh man, so that's a good question because real quick, so like you said, you got to watch all the Super Bowls, and all that good stuff. So I remember my vivid memory of Super Bowl 94, 95 season when they won a Super Bowl. I was like 10 years old when that happened. So, I didn't really see all that stuff live, like you said, like the early Super Bowls, like my dad when he was watching all that stuff, like you. So I watched all that stuff VHS tape. I've seen it through the years, but I wasn't in the moment. When I think 1989, I remember. I have pictures. I'm in the house with my dad watching Super Bowl. I'm like 5 years old, so it's hard to remember that stuff. But 10 years old, I remember that when we won in '94, and those were great memories. And you're absolutely right. Like fans of this era, people that are a little younger, they haven't watched the 49ers win a Super Bowl. What we have is the moments that really pain me. Some of my most disappointing moments, and is the Super Bowl losses. I remember, like the Super Bowl they lost against the Chiefs was just this just demoralizing. It was depressing. But the year they played the Ravens, honestly, to me that was it because I remember I was like, this is it, man. We have been starved for a team. We put together this star team. The Harbaugh led defense, and you had Bowman and Willis, and I was like, there's no way nobody beats us. Anybody can't beat us. Frank Gore and crap like that team was just amazing. Vernon Davis and the Tony Montana squad. I was so let down. I was in so much pain after that night. I remember we lost the game. I didn't want to talk to anybody for weeks, months, man. It was just like because I waited from 94 at that moment until that year. It was like over 20 years, and you're sitting there going like, okay, this is it. And I remember throwing a big party. I had my daughter. She was hyped up, and she was like 6 years old at the time, and we were excited. And I was like ready to have this moment with my kid, like my dad had with me. And man, just crushed, absolutely crushed seeing the 49ers fall in defeat. The Chiefs' loss was tough in the Super Bowl, but it just wasn't as bad. Well, I mean, it was different because that one was like just demoralizing. But having waited so many years before that Super Bowl, the Ravens won, and in '94 when they played the Chargers and won, I was like, this is it. They're gonna win their sixth Super Bowl, and man, I was crushed. So to me, that was like the biggest demoralizing moment as a 49er fan. There's been some other ones. Kyle Williams fumble. That was rough. Of course, there's been a couple other big moments last year in the NFC Championship game. Brock Purdy with the elbow. We're down to Josh Johnson, and then we're down to no quarterbacks. Like those are all. There's been a lot, but to me, the number one demoralizing moment to me was that loss to the Ravens. We were a better team, man. And then the lights go off, and that Super Bowl was just that was terrible. I don't even want to talk about it anymore.
It's funny because the question that I get asked a lot is which one's more painful, the loss to the Ravens or the loss to the Chiefs? And I'm like, both are because they didn't get to host the Lombardi Trophy. Now, you can take it that with the Ravens, we were playing from behind. We started with a slow start. The whole blackout situation. Then we started to come back, and then they instead of running it, they passed it 4 times. What was Harbaugh and Roman thinking at that particular time? Things that you just kind of get like, why? And then that one, but it was still a loss with Kaepernick and the guys. And then you move forward, you make it back to the Super Bowl. You're playing the Chiefs. You're leading for the first 3 quarters, and you're dominating. Not just getting by, you're dominating the game, and you're beating a team with Patrick Mahomes on that side of the ball. And what happened? You let Patrick Mahomes be Patrick Mahomes. I know a lot of people blame Jimmy, and the majority should be blaming Jimmy, but the defense kind of laid out. Whether there was a coordinator or the defense, they allowed. To me, that breaking play, that big long play from Holmes to
The wasp
yeah, the
play.
wall, yeah,
There was
when that
10 minutes left. We
yeah
were about to hoist it, and they celebrated a little too early. And you're right, they let it go, and then the 49ers had an opportunity on offense, and the missed pass to San. That was rough. But the Ravens one, man, like that one was gutting because they came all the way back. And you're absolutely right. You had four chances to run the ball, which was why you came back in the first place. And I don't know what it was during that Harbaugh era. It's like I think they had this vision, like a dream, that they wanted to win the Super Bowl on a fade to Crabtree. They tried that play so many times during that era, and it never worked because the next year they get to the NFC Championship game and they run the same damn play, and then it gets interception, and then you have Richard Sherman. That's what you get when you try me with the sorry receiver, like the play never worked for them, and they always did it, man. But yeah, both of them were awful. They were just awful. But man, I'm getting sick thinking about it.
yeah, I hear you, brother. I just want to welcome real quick Bryant Cope to the house. What's up, Bryant? Ramilia Sports Report. Rudy is in the house. What's up, Rudy? We got Santa Clara Era in the house. Big what is it? Mac Sports in the house. What's up? Welcome, welcome. Yeah, bro. It's tough to watch losses like that, especially the Chiefs game. I mean, so close. Um, I don't, it sucks that the players kind of celebrated early, but they were dominating and they were playing so good. And and people forget you're caught in the moment. You're excited. You make a big play, an interception, and that's just a reaction. But it did unfortunately bite us in the butt and bite us hard. And you know, on the note of the Kansas City Chiefs, I want to get your opinion on this.
Hmm.
Andy Reid has always been on. Forget about the two Super Bowls he just won with Patrick Mahomes. But prior to
Okay.
Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid was that coach that can get as far as the Super Bowl, but didn't win it. Can make it to the NFC Championship, but couldn't get over the hump. And a lot of the things that people compare Shanahan to Andy Reid is that Shanahan can't win the big game. He can't get. What was Andy Reid missing? He was missing
Okay.
a quarterback, wasn't he? Once he
Hmm.
got his quarterback, everything is history. Kyle's missing the same ingredient. Kyle's is there. I mean, regardless if we haven't got over the hump, you can't excuse that we've been in the NFC Championship 3 times in Kyle's era and 1 Super Bowl appearance. Besides, the Detroit Lions are now changing things around, Raj, but they haven't sniffed a championship game in how many years? The Cowboys now enter 28 years since they've been
Hmm.
into a championship game.
Yeah.
A lot of teams don't even get that far. And I'm not saying we should settle just for that. No. But you can't, at least I can't take away that Kyle's a good coach. Yeah, is he arrogant? Yes. Does he make his mistakes? Which rookie coach doesn't? But I seen him learn from the first time, year one, to where he's at today. Well, I want to get your thoughts on Kyle and the Andy Reid comparisons. Look at Andy Reid now. What are your whole thoughts of the whole thing that I just said?
No, honestly, and I've said this so many times because there's so many people in the fan base fire Kyle, because they want him to win Super Bowl. They're saying they can't get there. But, we've talked about this many times. I'm sure a lot of content creators have brought this up or anybody that covers 49ers. Before Kyle was there, obviously, for several years, they were in a dumpster fire. They were in a dark time. You lose Harbaugh, which we mentioned earlier, the Super Bowl years, and it was bad, man, when he left because you lost a lot of talent. When someone like Harbaugh's stature leaves, obviously players don't want to be there anymore. You lose free agents that probably could have signed there. You had veterans go other teams. It was dark, man. And then Shanahan came in his first year. Obviously, he came in no talent. He started to stack the roster, and if you really think about it, 3 NFC championships in 4 years, and one of those years they went to Super Bowl. To me, it's absolutely exactly like Andy Reid. I've said this so many times. Kyle Shanahan is the next Andy Reid. Like he's knocking on the door. Andy Reid for so many years with the Eagles. I remember it was like NFC Championship, NFC Championship. I think it was 4 straight years they get to an NFC Championship. One of those years they went to a Super Bowl. It was crazy, man. Like he was doing what Kyle Shanahan was doing, but he could never get over the hump because you're absolutely right. Quarterback. That was their issue. And it wasn't that they had bad quarterback. They just didn't have the guy that he could find to win a Super Bowl. Like they had Donovan McNabb one year with T.O. That team was so good. And I remember T.O. comes in, broken foot, and he still goes to the Super Bowl. And I was rooting for him because T.O. was my guy. So I was like, damn, and they still couldn't put it together. And again, they just ran into some teams that were able to beat him because of the quarterback position. And then he goes to Kansas City, and he turns them around. They get to the playoffs almost every year. They were perennial playoff guys, but they could never get out of the first round. They had Alex Smith, and he kind of turned Alex Smith around just like Harbaugh started to. And Andy Reid took Alex Smith, and they would get to the first round every single year. And then finally, he finds Patrick Mahomes, a very rare talent. It's hard to find a guy like Patrick Mahomes. And Kyle's been trying, man. He's put in quarterback after quarterback after quarterback. Garoppolo was there. We thought he was going to be the guy. He got hurt. He just didn't pan out. Unfortunately, quarterback has been an issue. They've put together some nasty teams. Like, you look at the roster on this talent, some of the best players in the league, some of the highest paid players in the league, they're close, man. So the fact that they're getting that close, NFC Championship, I will take that. I know it sucks when they don't end up winning, but I'd take a championship run at least over the 2-win seasons. And even before that, before Harbaugh came, Dennis Erickson years, Singletary years, 2-win seasons, 4 wins, they were just dog shit, man. And after they got rid of Mariucci, some bad years, So just like you, I've seen the ups and downs of this team. I've seen this team like being the top dog in the NFC for year after year after year, and then it just went downhill, and you're like, what are we going to do to get back to the top? So Kyle Shanahan, man, as much crap as he gets, he's been a phenomenal coach for this team. He's an offensive kind of innovative offensive guy, just like Andy Reid, who, when you see some of the plays that Andy Reid does, it's crazy because I watched him last year. I watched some games. He did a ring around the posy play. He scored a touchdown, and some of the plays he does, you're like, how's he come up with this stuff? And Kyle Shanahan does some crazy plays. You're like,
yep.
How's he come up with these plays? So he's there. He's there. It's going to happen eventually, but I don't know. And they got to figure out this quarterback issue because the one thing the 49ers have always had with Kyle Shanahan is quarterback controversy. We're sitting here year 6 into the regime,
Yep.
or 7, and we still
7,
have quarterback issues. We still don't know what the hell's going to happen with quarterback. So they got to figure that out.
You made a valid point with the quarterback situation because, yeah, they built the defense and they got the defense where it needs to be, but everybody knows it starts and ends at quarterback. It doesn't matter. The defense can only do so much. You need that quarterback. I tell everybody, if we had the Patrick Mahomes, if we had the Josh Allens, or right now, or the Joe Burrows, we would have won that game against Kansas City easily. It was the lack of, the defense gave up some yards and gave up the points, but the teams feed off each other. You get good quarterback play, everybody feeds off of that. The defense feeds off of it, special teams feeds off of it, and you start building up that rapport from your quarterback. When your quarterback throws interception in a timely matter where it costs your defense or puts your defense in a bad situation where now the defense backs are against the wall and they just got off of a 5 or 8, 9 series play, and they're tired. You can't do that, and that's what we had in Jimmy Garoppolo, and this is what we're trying to find in Trey Lance or Brock Purdy. A lot of people, I don't understand the 49er fan base, Raj. Maybe you can explain it to me a little bit on the whole, Trey Lance, Brock Purdy, who should be start, who shouldn't play. And I always tell, everybody has their opinion and I respect it. It doesn't mean that I agree with them. But I have, on my hand, I have the emblem of the SF. I don't have a player. Now, do I like Trey? Yes. Do I wish Trey would get a fair shot at this? Yes. I want him to be successful. Of course, he was drafted high. We gave up high draft picks. I liked him out of college. The only thing that, in my opinion, that he's lacking in is experience. He has the ability. He just has to be given the opportunity. But the emergence of Brock Purdy, I did not see it coming. I did not see this kid come in with such poise, tranquility, coming in like a vet, did not look like a rookie. Came against the team that he grew up idolizing in the Dolphins, his dad, wearing number 13 for Dan Marino. Coming, it's like fate almost. It's like not that Jimmy got hurt, but he came into the team that he loved growing up watching, and then came back and won that game. And that was a game that it was talked about all week long. The Dolphins were playing good until that point. They were great offense, and he came in and just commanded poise. Didn't get rattled, didn't get shaken up. And one of the things that I noticed from Brock Purdy throughout the games, not just winning, which is the obvious, Raj, but there were not that many delay of games. When you get with, people don't realize how important that is. Rookie quarterbacks get a lot of delayed games because they can't process and get that information from the headset, from the coach to the players. And Brock was just like humming, and he did some great plays. Now the lack of him is his height, and the arm. I'm not worried too much because he can grow into that. He can, what was his Tom Brady? Although Tom Brady's a bigger frame, he didn't have the strongest arm. He built into that. Now, the only thing that Brock can never do is grow into a bigger frame. But I want to ask your honest opinion, Raj. Just looking at a quarterback and taking away favoritism, I don't know who you like more, but just taking all that out of the equation, just based on what you've seen from Brock, are you convinced he's the starter for this team? Or you think that we can't go too far with him and Trey Lance should be the starter?
So, those are all good points, and that's a great question. And one thing I got to say before I even preface this is I don't really necessarily have a preference, because at the end of the day, what we talk about, we want a Super Bowl. Whoever is the starting quarterback and 49ers win Super Bowl,
Come on,
I'll be
Raj.
happy. At the end of the day, that's what we've been waiting for. Again, what we just say is Kyle Shanahan needs to make sure he finds the right guy. Kyle Shanahan knows how to scheme up plays. He can get players open, and his offense is predicated on the run. You got the Yak Bros, Debo Samuel. You throw it to him in space. You give Ayuk, a ball here, and let him use his route running. You got Kittle. You got CMC. So the 49ers have weapons in place to let these guys be successful. Now, Brock Purdy, again, you're right. He showed so much more poise. He came in a tough situation, thrown into the fire against Miami. Again, that game was huge. I was there, and everybody was talking about how, oh, Miami's a juggernaut. They were the top team. We kind of threw them off their course. After they played us, they went on a losing streak, and 49ers did that a lot last year. But in terms of quarterback play, the guy was a leader. He was a solid leader on this team, a guy that came in and he had no fear. And I haven't seen anything like that out of a rookie. You're absolutely right. For a rookie to come in and just be that poised, but it shows you how much the difference in experience between these two quarterbacks is, because Brock played several years, 4 years at Iowa State, a big time school. They've had some big games. He played, sold out seats against some, marquee teams out there. And that gave him preparation to be, in a bigger spot. Obviously, college football is different than NFL, but he had 4 years of experience. Now, Trey Lance had a really, really, really good year in 2019 at North Dakota State. Hell of a year, FCS championships, but the talent's different. Then he took a year off because of COVID, not his fault. And then he comes in by the 49ers. They love the potential. He has that ceiling. He looks like a flashy athlete. He's a raw talent. With a raw talent, you need development, just like you said. So with Trey, I love the potential. I think they should have started him that year they traded for him, But, he got set back, and I get the whole, you got a veteran, you got Jimmy there, because he did win games with Kyle. He knew the system. He was a solid mentor. But I feel like that whole situation, because at that point they were saying, hey, we're walking away from Jimmy. I think at that moment they should have just said, look, we got Trey, we got to give him the year, because you're going to take a year of development anyways. Now we're 3 years into his career. We're going to have to take a whole year of development with him. And now we have a Super Bowl ready roster. Can he take this team to the next level? I don't know. We don't know. We don't know what Trey's going to be. I think he can win, but there's so many unknowns. And again, he's coming off a big injury. Now, George Kittle, several months ago when the season was ending, he says this is Brock Purdy's job to lose. He's absolutely right, because they got to the NFC Championship with Brock Purdy. They saw him do what they needed to do. the offense elevated, and I agree with you. His arm's not the greatest, but he could grow into it. Hit the NFL weight room, he'll get stronger. He can get taller, but he could get stronger, and that could help him. But again, the 49ers offense, you dump it off to Debo, 5 yards, he'll turn it to 83 yards. Jimmy Garoppolo was master at that quick release, drop it off to Debo and Kittle, and they'll do the rest. So it's not necessarily like you need to have a huge arm in this offense. You got to be poised. You got to stay healthy. I like them both. But honestly, right now, I think what will happen and what should happen is Trey's going to get every opportunity to go out there and earn the starting spot. It's not going to be handed to him, but he's going to go out there and compete and say, hey, look, this is why you drafted me. If he comes in year 3 and he's shown that he can made the improvements in reading the defense, making the reads, because he's got the talent. We know he can throw the damn ball like 90. He's got a cannon. He's got the talent, but he's got to be fine-tuned. He's got to make sure he makes the reads, doesn't make mistakes. He can't throw the interceptions. If he goes out there and he just kills training camp, that's his job to lose, right? Until Brock Purdy comes back, because he should be back some part of the next, like the early couple weeks of the season. Now, if Trey's stumbling and he's not looking good, that's the question: is when do you take the leash away? Do you wait for a 3-5 start? Do you wait for him, to start really making mistakes? You got to give him some time because you did trade up, but at the same time, you don't want to miss the season, miss the playoffs because you have such a good team. So the 49ers have proven they can start 3-5 and still make the playoffs. Brock Purdy's proven he could come in mid-season and right those wrongs and kind of save the season. So to me, I give him a month, at least 4 games. You see where you're at. If you're kind of shaky and you're not getting off to a good start, then you can put Brock in and you know what you have with him. But also, too, you have to make sure that you don't rush him. You don't want to make sure you just throw him in there because he's coming off a major injury. So either way, I like them both. I think it is Brock's job to lose just because of what he put out there last year. And Kittle said it best. He got us to the NFC Championship. And that tells me that the players believe in Brock right now. Trey's got to win them over, and he's got to prove to them that he's a leader, he's a captain, because that is a big part of being a quarterback, and we just don't know with Trey. But hey, either way, whoever started, my man Beto, and they take us to the promised land, I will love them. That's it.
Exactly. And to the point, and we'll move on from this. To your point, we have started the last 2 years late in the game. I think 3-5, and then the other one was 2-4, and we made it with more competition in the NFC. This year, the NFC has gotten weaker. Aaron Rodgers is going to be out of Green Bay. You got the Rams are pretty depleted. They lost most of their players. Arizona Kyle's not going to be playing for the most of the first half of the year. There's so many unknowns. Tampa Bay, Tom Brady retired. So if you look at the NFC, it's wide open. I think there's an error for a margin for error, I should say, for Trey to give Trey an opportunity to take some lumps and not to go too far, knowing that you have Brock Purdy, he's healing on the back, and if he happens to come in, he can salvage, like you said, salvage the season and move on. One thing, I got a discussion with a 49er fan. I told him I love Trey. I wanted Trey to be drafted. I still believe in Trey. But I would be disappointing, honestly, if Trey loses his job, not to Brock, but to Sam Darnold, who comes in.
Good.
And, I'm keeping it real. Sam Darnold, USC, I think he went to a terrible situation. I know, I'm not blind. I've seen what Sam Darnold can do. I've seen him, the ghost and the making the mistakes. But in reality, he went from college to a bad organization in the Jets. It was not even the regime that is there now. Robert Saleh wasn't there when he was drafted. As soon as Robert Saleh got there in LaFleur, he was traded to the Panthers when they drafted their guy, Zach Wilson. And they moved on from him. And I think they wanted to go with their quarterback. So it wasn't even a competition between Sam and Zach. Because as bad as Zach is, I think Sam would have won that battle that year.
Oh, yeah.
But they wanted their guy, and every regime wants their own guy, which I understand.
100%. Yeah, you take over a team, you're going to bring in your players, your mindset, your pride, because you want to sink or swim with your guys. If you fail with your own players, then it's yourself. But if you fail with other people, it's hard to say, well, I didn't have my players, so you need to. And 100%, if I was taking over a team, and I needed certain players, I'd bring over the players I want, just like D'Amico Ryans is doing. Robert Salah did it. The Panther, or not the Panthers, the Cardinals, when they went and drafted Kyler Murray, everybody thought they were taking somebody else, Josh Rosen. They said Josh Rosen's our guy. Yeah, okay. They drafted Kyler Murray, and Niners luckily were able to get Nick Bosa, so thank God they drafted him. But you never know. You got to go with your guy, and I agree with you. Sam Darnold has talent. He's 25. He's been the number 3 pick in the draft. He failed. He's been humbled mentally. He's been through so much in this league. He's not just going to come in here and accept to be the backup. He's coming into camp this offseason to train and push Trey Lance. And I think Kyle knew that. And that's why he took Sam Darnold, because he said, okay, I'm going to get this young man, Sam Darnold, who's still 25, who is a first-round pick, who has a chip on his shoulder. And so does Trey. I'm going to throw these two guys out there. And if Trey Lance can't beat out Sam Darnold in training camp, guess what? It's not his team. And it's not like a slight at Trey. I'm not saying Trey can't beat him. I'm saying if Trey Lance can't beat Sam Darnold, then it'll tell you everything you need to know that Brock Purdy's your guy. And if Trey Lance beats out Sam Darnold, you give him that opportunity, because you're absolutely right, Beto. This NFC is kind of open right now. You have some room for error because the lines are ascending, but they haven't proven anything. The Bears had a good offseason, but they haven't proven anything. You got the Eagles. They're probably our top competition, but they lost a lot of starters. Dallas Cowboys are the Dallas Cowboys. They'll be a great regular season team, but they're not strong enough to win the playoffs because they have Dak Prescott. So to me, 49ers know they have this kind of window where they could lose a few games, although you don't want to. But if Trey comes out hot, let's say he beats Sam Darnold, he comes in, he's QB1. Let's say he goes 5-1. I guarantee you every Niner fan is going to be scorching with Trey Lance jerseys. His stock's going to go, because they're going to be like, hey, we're 5-1. Yep. Last year, we weren't starting this good. The year before, we weren't starting this good. So if all Trey has to do is win some games, and most fans that aren't with him, they'll start buying in. And that's it. And Trey knows it. I've heard some things, behind the scenes, that Trey's been grinding. He's been looking at tape. He wants to come out and prove himself. But, hey, I'm sure Sam Darnold's not going to go out there and not give his best. It's going to be a fun training camp, even though, Brock's going to be slowly integrated because he's coming off the injury. But I'm going to tell you what, Sam Darnold and Trey Lance, it's going to be a fun little competition.
It sure is. And if people remember Josh Allen, a lot of people look like a top 5 quarterback now. When he came out of Wyoming, a small school, he came into Buffalo, a high expectation, didn't do too good his first year. I've heard a lot of Buffalo fans wanting his head. Why did they draft him? Oh my God, he's a terrible player. And they were just all over the place, kind of like the Niners are with Trey Lance. But the Buffalo stuck with him because Buffalo's seen him in and out of practice every day. They know him closer than fans just gets to read on the news about the player. And they stuck with him. I'm not saying Trey Lance is going to be a Josh. I'm just using this comparison that Josh did not come in like Patrick Mahomes just took off. You don't get that many Patrick Mahomes player types that come out of college and just take off. Josh Allen became more accurate, and he went from I think he was 63%, or he was even up to 68. I forgot what his percentage was in college, but it wasn't good. And he developed that. And he also came from a small school, although he played more than Trey did. But
yeah,
Trey would have an opportunity to show us what he can do. But at this point, for me, honestly, I want the iron sharpens iron. Okay? I want the best competition. I love Trey. I love Brock. And now Sam's coming into the fold. Honestly, I want the best quarterback out there commanding this team to a Super Bowl. Whether it's Trey, I support Trey. Whether it's Brock, I support Brock. If it's Sam Darnold, I'm not going to hate or love a player. I will support and appreciate them because I get attached like everybody else does. But the ultimate goal is a Lombardi trophy and getting number 6. Who gets you there, it doesn't matter. It's just that we get there as a fan base. So we'll see what happens. But I believe that Trey understands he has a small margin of error. He can't afford to start slow again. Not only does he have Brock, but now he has Sam. And I think Kyle's smart. He sometimes you need a match to start a wildfire, right? You need to lit that match up just to get that thing going. I think he knew that, you know what, let's push, because he knew Brock was not going to be able to push Trey this offseason because of his injury.
Yeah.
He didn't want Trey coming in like, this is my team again. You know, it's just by default. No. Boy, you want this team, you need to earn it. And again, I support Trey. I love him. But I want him to, and he said it himself.
Yeah.
Whether he said that publicly to look good or he means it, I think he means it. I welcome that challenge. Anybody that truly wants to be truthful, successful, Raj, would welcome challenges and not be afraid of them.
100%. It's like you just said. He told us on that Rich Eisen interview. He says, "Listen, I don't want to hand it to me. And if he's sincere about that, if he really means it, Kyle Shanahan just went and got Sam Darnold, and he's going to let you compete with him. If you mean it, go prove it." And you're absolutely right with what you just said. Is they brought in a guy that could compete because Brock Purdy's not going to be there for most of this training camp. He'll be rehabbing on the side, throwing, like Jimmy was there last year, but he was going to be in the back. So we don't know how much Brock Purdy's going to be integrated in this training camp. So you need someone to push Trey. If you want him to be the best version of himself, you have to have him compete because you're right. If he goes out there and he's just lollygagging, it's my job. Look at this. Okay, I can make this. But okay, he's not going to get better because he needs the reps. We know he needs the reps. Like you said with Josh Allen, he needed the reps. Trey Lance absolutely needs the reps. Now, he's going to have to really put in the blood, sweat, and tears during these training camp reps to show he's the guy. And like we said, if he can't beat out Sam Darnold, he's not the guy. He could be a backup quarterback for Brock if he gets hurt or Sam Darnold. But if you can't beat out Sam Darnold, that's not your job, man. You can't be handed to him. And I have every confidence if he is that guy, and I think he is talented, there's a reason why they took him. He's going to prove himself and beat Sam Darnold. I think he will, but it's going to be a fun camp, man. And again, I'm happy they brought in Sam Darnold because he's still 25 years old with upside, and he's never played on a team like this. He's never had this many weapons around him. He kind of, like I said, went into the worst position with the freaking Jets, and the New York media will rip you apart, man.
Yeah.
Number 3 pick, they ate him alive. Look what they did to Zach Wilson, and I'm glad he left that because I think last year he was absolutely humbled. He got to compete against Baker, and then second half of the season, they got Steve Wilkes there. He went 4-2 as a starting quarterback,
yes,
and I bet you Steve Wilkes told Kyle, like, yo, get Sam Darnold. The kid is nice. He's a good young man, and we can get him in to compete with Trey. I love Steve Wilkes hiring because he's brought in some people, and I think he's really helping Kyle, saying, look, go get Sam Darnold. Because there was a lot of rumors on who they were going to get offseason. I'm glad they got Darnold. He's a younger guy. Because I would have not wanted Matt Ryan. I would not have wanted some of these names that are out there. I mean, geez, they were like, oh, God, please don't get these guys. Darnold's I think he's a solid young. He's still 25, Beto. That's pretty good.
Yeah, they got at the very worst, they got a third string quarterback. They can be there. At the very best, he can be the QB1. Challenge the other guys. Listen, what's his name? I call him the Red Rifle, the one that Andy Dalton. He was not really going to challenge Trey. I don't care about the experience. The kid that you just said there was with the Colts. They left from Atlanta. He Matt Ryan, and he's not the same Matt Ryan. People got to stop that. He's not the Matt Ryan of youth. So with that said, bro, I want to see what happens in camp. Let's transition over to free agency additions and departures. So I don't want to keep you here forever. We lost some players and we added some players. We lost. I had to say. I say we lost one starter in defense. A lot of people argue me that would say that we lost 2 because we lost Emmanuel Mosley and Ward. But Emmanuel Mosley has been always injured for most of his career. Never really started all 16 or 18 games. Ward has. So to me, we lost a starter and a potential starter in Emmanuel Mosley. Lenore has come up and stepped up strong at the end of the year. So we lost those 2 players, but we gained freaking Hargrave at the center position, which is going to elevate, in my opinion, Armstead. People remember the 2019, Raj, where Armstead had his best year. Is when you had Buckner and you had Bosa commanding double teams. That left Armstead on a single. Just go after the quarterback. Now that Hargrave's coming in, he's going to demand attention from offensive coordinators as well. They're going to put attention on Bosa and him. Man, Dre Jackson and Armstead is going to have the opportunity to eat. I want to get your thoughts on the additions that we brought in, particularly Hargrave, and your thoughts on the departure of Ward.
Yeah, no, those are good questions. I mean, the 49ers definitely lost more talent than they usually do, but you got to remember, we talked about it earlier. They have so much great players. You can't pay everybody. You're going to lose some people. I agree with what you said about E-Man. I liked him. I was, sad to see him go, but he's coming off a torn ACL. He got $6.5 million. Kudos to him for getting that $6 million.
Yes,
Detroit's
sir.
a team on the rise. They're willing to pay to get their team stronger. A team that hasn't done much. So for them, they need players that with potential. So shout out to the Lions. They're doing what they got to do. I'm happy for Mosley. He can be a potential Pro Bowler. But you're absolutely right. He had a lot of injuries, and to me, Lenore, he stepped in and he played great last year, especially that playoff run. I'm probably the biggest Dion Lenore fan. I hype him up all the time. I remember I got people hating on me, like, "Oh, Lenore, you don't know what you talk about." And then the playoff game, I was there. I posted a video. I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, "I told y'all! I
Come on
told
now.
y'all, Lenore!" And I was like, "I told y'all!" And everybody's like, "Oh, Rod, you called it. He's getting a pick." And then the next night, I go live. I said, "Dion Lenore's getting another pick." And they were like, "Damn, Rod, you've been nailing with Lenore," because I knew it. They're gonna pick on the guy because everybody thinks he's the weakling. The more you keep picking on him, he's gonna make you pay. So I like
Yes.
him. So I'm not too worried about losing Emmanuel Mosley. Lenore looks like he's on a trajectory going up, and they added some secondary players for depth and competition. I like them. Losing Ward was absolutely the biggest loss of this offseason, just like last year was DJ Jones. I understand, they couldn't pay him the money. They brought in cheaper options, and I get it where the 49ers are headed because they do have to extend Nick Bosa, and they got a lot of other high-paid players, and they just got Hargrave, who I'll touch base on. But Jimmy Ward, to me, not just because he's a good quality player, because he's a leader, he's a captain, a great human being. 9 years on the team, man. It's hard to replace a guy that's been on this team through so many, through so much. He was the last player that was part of that Harbaugh era and connected to the Niners. So gonna miss him personally. Like me and him, we're really tight behind the scenes. I talk to him all the time. I try to message these players, and he was one guy I talk to every week before the game. Like, "Yo, Jimmy, this is your week. Let's get your stats up." And we'd always just talk. This week he posted his farewell. He tagged me in it. He only tagged 3 people in that post, and I was kind of like, I was like, damn, he really did appreciate me because I tried so much to support this guy over the years. So when he first came on this team, people are like, "Oh, he's glass, man." Because he did go through a lot of injuries, but he persevered. He stayed with the team, became a solid player. He tagged me, the 49ers page, and his agency. That's it. And then he comments on my page. And, so personally, I'm going to miss him because he was a dog. He was a real one to me, but he was a good player and a good leader. They did bring back Tashawn Gibson. So to me, they're still going to have a solid veteran at safety, but
Yes.
it's hard to replace the leadership of Jimmy Ward. But Javon Hargrave was an absolute money move. That was one of the biggest moves in free agency of all teams. 49ers had the number 1 defense. There's not a lot you can do to make it better. That move may have made them better because you're
Yes.
right. You're going to make Armstead so much better. You're going to make his job so much easier because he was having to do so much. The year he had Defoe and him, he was slipping through because he was going unblocked and picking up cleanup sacks. The year with DJ Jones, him and Jones were just knocking it together, closing up the run. He was getting some cleanup sacks. In the playoffs, I remember a Green Bay game. That's Armstead cooked in that playoff game against the Packers 2 years back. So that's why I feel is going to really help. It's going to really help out. And then obviously Bosa, this man carried this defense on his back last year. 18 and a half sacks. He got really tired in the playoffs. You could tell. So Hargrave's going to get double blocked. Bosa's going to get double blocked. You're going to have to spend somebody to block Armstead. And then Drake Jackson, if he can get his body in right shape, he's going to benefit from
Yes.
Hargrave. So to me, Hargrave was an absolute smash hit, and the contract wasn't bad. It looks like 4 years. He's got the $40 million guarantee, but there's 2 years they can void out. So really, 2 years you're putting this team to be in position to win a Super Bowl in the next 2 years. That's what it's telling me. And you take a solid player away from the Eagles, one of your biggest competitions, like we talked about in the NFC. You make them weaker. You make yourself stronger. You make your defense better. It's a win-win. And, the secondary, how you can help them is if you get to the quarterback. Because if the quarterback's rushed all day, the secondary is going to be able to cover everybody. You cover and rush. That's what it is. And to me, that was a big move. But personally, I will miss Jimmy Ward. That was my guy.
Yeah, I like Jimmy too. I know when he first came in, I used to call him Jimmy Hospital Ward because he's always get injured. But he proven himself, and for towards the later of his career, he hardly got injured. He cracked me up. Him and Hufanga. I don't know if you've seen that take where Hufanga's sitting in the golf cart with the new
Oh yeah,
reporter, and he
yeah,
came
yeah.
to say hi, and he hit his head, and Hufanga was kind of laughing, but you can see the rapport between him and the players. So I love Jimmy Ward. He'll be missed as well. I wish him the best. That was a great letter, and congrats to you that he tagged you on it. That just shows how much respect he had for Drew Raj,
Oh
and you know
yeah,
what I
no.
mean. And it's you know the players, you talk to them, and it's not about what you can do for me, but you were honest with him, good friends with him, and he acknowledged that he didn't have to tag you. He
No,
could have
he didn't,
just
and he even posted on my because I made a Jimmy Ward thank you appreciation post, and everybody's been doing that, but he personally took time. He posted on my page. I pinned it. He goes, he says, keep doing your thing, my guy. You're a true blessing to the faithful family. Thanks for all you've done and you continue to do. Like he didn't have to mention that. Like I was like, damn man, Jimmy, he really respected me. So it made me realize, like the faithful community definitely respects me, but these players do, and that's why I keep doing my thing. Like I'm gonna keep it 100. If I don't think a player did good, I'll say it. But at the same token, I know they go through so much shit, like you said, the injuries. Because I saw this guy, the talent. I was like, this guy's good, man. He's good. I watched his college film. I was like, he's talented. But they kept putting him out of position, and he
yep,
kept getting hurt. And I was like, man, this guy just maybe his career won't pan out because of the injuries. But he kept pushing, and I remember he just kept on going at it and going. I was like, man, I was rooting for him. I was like, I really want this guy to be a good player. And when he finally got healthy and he kind of figured out his role on his defense and he became a solid player, I was so happy for him. So I was like, you know what, man, I respect this guy. So yeah, shout out to Jimmy Ward. He will be missed, but I hope he kicks butt, man, in Houston. And I think he's going to be a good leader for them. He's going to be like what Richard Sherman was to the Niners when he came over here. Uncle Sherm. I told him, I said, you're about to be Uncle Jimmy. He laughed. He goes, yes, that's what I think I'm going to be doing. He said, D'Amico wants me to be that leader over there. So I was like, good luck, man. So definitely a real one, Jimmy Ward.
yeah, he will definitely miss. But I'm going to be rooting for him, not necessarily for the team, but for him in particularly. It's hard not to read for that team because of D'Amico too. I love D'Amico. I wish him the best.
Yeah.
He has a lot of family there in Houston, so hopefully he can turn that organization around. I'm going to bring I have a couple more, but I'm just going to bring another topic because I know your time is valuable, and I don't like to keep here people too long, my friend. It says, based on what we've seen in so far in free agents, which direction will the Niners go with their 99, 101, and 102 pick in the draft, in your opinion? And we'll end the show with that.
A great question. And honestly, I think the 49ers, if I'm the GM, if I'm John Lynch, I'm taking those picks, at least two of them, and adding something. I'm trying to trade up to the round two to get a right tackle, to go get
Okay.
like a guy like Cody Mock or Freeland, because those two
Freeland.
guys can be really, there's some really good tackles in this draft. If you get a quality guy that can play right, and maybe be your future left tackle, because you got to think 10 steps ahead. 49ers have to, because in a year or two, Trent Williams might not be on this team, right? And you got to replace him. You don't want to have to try to replace him when he goes. I mean, you could, because the 49ers did it with Joe Staley. They replaced Joe Staley immediately with Trent Williams. That was crazy day. I remember Joe Staley announces his retirement. Literally 20 minutes later, after I got done crying, I was excited because I was like, the hell just happened? The 49ers went and signed or traded for Trent Williams. I was like, this is a crazy day. I'm crying, and then I'm having tears of happiness because they go and get Trent Williams. So they could do something like that in a few years, but I don't know. You still got to get a tackle that can be a dog for you, because I still don't know if Colton McKivitz is going to be a quality starter. I think the writing is on the wall that he's going to be able to compete, be a cheaper version or a cheaper option of Mike McGlinchey, but I don't know if he's going to be a solid starter. You want to make sure your O-line is as good as it can be, because we saw in the NFC Championship game, O-line got just demolished, and your quarterbacks got hurt. So it was sad. So to me, I hope they trade up and get a tackle, but if they don't, if they keep those three picks, I'm going edge, I'm going tackle, and I'm going safety, because we just talked about losing Jimmy Ward. You got Tashawn Gibson there for one more year, but after he leaves next year, you're going to have a guy to replace him. And I think if you could take a free safety this year and let Gibson kind of mentor him. That's a money move. Edge rusher, because I like, Nick Bosa, obviously. I like Drake Jackson's potential, but you're putting a lot of pressure on the young man. You got Cleveland Farrell, who I think Kasert can do good with, like he did with every other pass rusher that's come through this team over the last couple years. Arden Key, Kerry Hyder, Emmanuel Ebicam. You're going to insert Cleveland Farrell into that role. They got Austin Bryant the other day, so he's probably going to come in and replace Jordan Willis maybe. But I still feel like they need more edge depth. There's some really quality guys this year. I had another guy that Kasert can develop. And then, tackle, like we said. If they stay put at round with those 3 picks, you get a tackle because you need depth and you want to put some competition for McKivitz. You need an edge rusher because what I just said, and you need a safety. If you don't get a safety, go get a damn tight end because this year's tight end class is unbelievable. There's this guy, Kuntz from Old Dominion. The guy's a freaking athlete, like stud. This guy could be like the next Antonio Gates type guy. He's like a monster, man. Go get Kuntz out of Old Dominion. I like this guy because guess who else is probably not going to be around in 2 years? George Kittle. I love him, but he's 30 years old, Beto, and that's catching the years start catching up, especially the way he plays. Go get yourself another tight end. Those are the 3 picks. Those would be the 4 players maybe in that range I would target.
Funny you say tight end. The kid Davis from Clemson, I also like as well, something to look at. And this was the last question, but I just wanted to kind of speak on what you mentioned earlier about Trent Williams when Joe Staley retired. And I want to definitely, we'll end it on this note, but I wanted to get your thought. A lot of people, the fan base, say that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch are not aggressive enough. I don't understand where they get that because you just said Joe Staley retires. They get Trent Williams for a 3rd and a 5th. But not only that, but they got it from a team that hated the Niners and Dan Snyder because of the Kyle Shanahan and the dad and the whole situation. And they still were able to manipulate them for trading Trent for a 3rd and a 5th. Argue the best left tackle. Now it looks like, man, we should have gave up a 1st for the kid, and we gave up only a 3rd and a 5th. They've made a mistake in Javon Kinlaw because of his medical issues. They go get Hargrave. They move up from 12 to 3 to go get Trey. Whether Trey works out or not, you can't look at the whether they get it right or they get it wrong. You just got to look at they had the balls to do it, right? Yeah. So I just want, and we'll end it with that. I wanted to get your thoughts. Where did the fan base get this narrative that they're not aggressive? Why aren't they like the Rams? I mean, I cannot comprehend sometimes the Niner fan base where they come in with this.
It's crazy because you absolutely nailed it, Beto. Like that is probably one of the best things I've ever heard Niner fans say because you're right. Again, they took over 2017. They were still learning. Like their first 2 years, maybe they weren't that aggressive because they were still learning. They were kind of feeling out the ropes. They were drafting players. They were developing their talent. They were getting some free agents. But even when they first came in that year, I'm not gonna lie, they made an impact because I think Kyle was trying to make sure he got Kirk Cousins, and I feel like he may have missed because there were some good quarterbacks in the draft. Okay, whatever. You take Solomon Thomas, you take an L there, but they went and still got a quarterback that year. They still went and got Jimmy Garoppolo, who at the time we all thought he was going to be the savior. So they were aggressive year one. They went and got some key free agents. Some of them got hurt and didn't pan out. They went and got Pierre Garçon, Marquise Goodwin. They got Kyle Juszczyk that year. The first year they went and got Jerick McKinnon. They brought in players that year. It just weren't players that the Niner fans wanted because they wanted big, sexy names.
Correct.
49ers don't go and get big, sexy names, but they have because you nailed it with the Trey Lance. That year, everyone was like, get rid of Jimmy, get a quarterback. Boom, blockbuster. They went and traded up to get the number 3 pick. They went and got Trey Lance. Now, whether he pans out or not, you're absolutely right. You can't tell me that they didn't make the money move because they tried to at least address it. Like everybody told them, go get a quarterback. Now, did they draft the right guy? Only time will tell. We'll see in the next 2 years if they did or not. We'll see how that pans out. But that is an absolute good point. And then you know what else they did? They went and got CMC this year. They were falling apart. 3-5. Everybody was on panic mode. This team is over. Break them up. They suck. Guess what? They went and made the money move of the season. Probably one of the best mid-season trades of all time. CMC saved the season. But guess what? That wasn't the first time they made a mid-season trade. A couple years back, 2019, They were still 8-0 until they lost to the Seahawks. Guess what they still did that year? They
Yep.
knew they weren't good enough in receiver. They went and
Yep.
traded for Emmanuel
That's
Sanders.
correct.
They make big moves, man. They went and got D Ford and Quan Alexander. Did they pan out? No, because they were injured. But they
But
did
they
it.
got him.
This
Yep.
offseason, Javon Hargrave, man. That was as aggressive as you can get. When you get the number one defense and you just make them better by getting a guy that's got 20 sacks over the last 2 years, whew, that's how you give. That's aggressiveness. So I don't know why Niner fans don't think they're aggressive enough. Because to me, I think they've been just as aggressive as they should have. But there's also, I think sometimes they look into things, and if it just doesn't make sense, they're not going to do it because they tell us all the time. We do our due diligence. I think fans get tired of hearing that because they're like, well, how come he didn't pull through? Sometimes they look, but maybe it just didn't make sense for them at the time. Money, or there's other players on their roster they feel can step up. Because the other part of that issue is the 49ers, they draft late round talent better than anybody. And sometimes they don't need to go get the splashy guy because they know they have the guy that's going to step in on their roster. Just people don't know yet. Like this year, they have a guy like Marcelino McCurry-Ball, who I think is going to be able to replace Azeez Al-Shahir easily.
Yep.
I love Azeez, but this guy Ball looks probably just as good, maybe better. And, through the years, they've lost players and they develop them. Like last year, okay, you lose Laken Tomlinson. Everybody was mad. Aaron Banks, he looks like he's going to be better than Laken Tomlinson. I think what it is when they miss or they make a bad decision, people point that out more than their positive, their positive actions, which is most people in society. That's just society for you. Because for every CMC and for every Hargrave move, there's a Solomon Thomas, there's a Reuben Foster, there's a,
You said Solomon
yeah.
Thomas already. Yeah. And and not only that, but it's also in the maneuvering in the draft how they moved.
Kinlaw.
I tell this the Kinlaw might have been still a mistake, but I tell people this: if you love Brandon Ayuk, because everybody, we don't want to trade Brandon Ayuk. Some people even say let's trade Debo, right? I love Brandon. Well, without that trade of Buckner, there is no Ayuk. And they're like, what do you mean? Because they traded with Tampa Bay and that extra draft just to move one spot down.
Just to move one spot, you're right.
And they used that to move back in the first round.
They got 13 pick from Defoe, which they actually moved back to get Kinlaw, and they grabbed another pick so they can go get
to move back into the first round.
Green Bay was trying to get Ayuk.
Yep.
And 49ers said, shit, we better make sure we get Ayuk. So they double traded.
And that's an aggressive move right there, too.
That's aggressive right there. Like, whether or not Kinlaw panned out, they were still aggressive. And you're right. They took the L on Kinlaw, but people hold that over their head. But they wrote their wrongs now. They said, okay, we screwed up. We got Hargrave now. You happy?
Yeah. Yeah. So they listen. Well, with that, Raj, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to hang in there for a minute. But everybody watching, thank you for watching another episode of the Niner Sickness Podcast. Thank you for coming and supporting not just myself, but my guest, Raj. Make sure to follow him on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. All his links are in the description below. Just click on it and follow him. Appreciate you guys very, very much. God bless, and we'll see you on the next Niner Sickness Podcast.